Hello, I'm Bret and you're watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. Our guest today is Marine Staff Sergeant Justin Harding. Staff Sergeant Harding has served as an entryman on 6 deployments with the 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines during the past 10 years. He has served on 4 deployments to Iraq, serving in conventional and counterinsurgency combat operations, including Operation Iraqi Freedom, as well as other stability and security operations and civil affairs. In 2005, he was wounded while conducting a vehicle patrol in Ramadi. Among numerous citations, medals, and ribbons awarded, Staff Sergeant Harding is a recipient of the Bronze Star with Valor and the Purple Heart. He also holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Bridgeport in Connecticut. He and his wife Yuriko from Japan are raising 3 children. Staff Sergeant Justin Harding, welcome to The Defining Moment. It's really an honor for me to welcome you here to our show.
Oh, thank you. The honor's all mine, actually.
Thanks for coming.
Yes.
Our topic today is a glimpse into a Marine's life on the front line in Iraq. And I'd like to begin by inviting you to share a defining moment from your own life.
I guess for me, the single most defining moment for my 4 tours in Iraq was on October 9th, 2004. We were engaged in combat operations in the southern sector of Ramadi. My unit, which was called Cat 2 at that time, was called out on a quick reaction force. And our sister unit was engaged with insurgents, and we were called to kind of block in the insurgents, to not let them get out. And in the counterinsurgency warfare, it's very hard to kind of trap your enemy. So we went out there, and we set up our blocking position, and in this blocking position, several civilian vehicles tried to come through our blocking position, and we would stop and search the occupants of the vehicles, and we actually found a terrorist team with IED equipment and rocket-propelled grenades and loaded magazines, and they just looked like regular everyday citizens, of Ramadi driving around. So we detained them. And on our way back to bringing them to base, on our return trip to the base, we were driving down a very dangerous street, and then we encountered an ambush. So these insurgents were actually laying a trap for us as we fought against their other insurgents in other parts of the town. Typical of street fighting. There's no limits or boundaries. So my vehicle was moving very slowly as we were towing another vehicle that had been damaged by an improvised explosive device. All of a sudden there was a scream over the radio of contact left, and the next thing I know, there was this huge explosion. I got to look to my left a little bit, and a rocket-propelled grenade had sliced through my Humvee and gone through my driver and exploded in the vehicle, nearly taking off the leg of my turret gunner, knocking out the Marine behind me, and then the Marine behind the driver was caught on fire. Instantly, the turret gunner called down and yelled to the driver, "Push through, push through, push through," which is our standard reaction to like a near ambush. You just want to get out of the kill zone. And I thought about it for a second. I looked over at the driver, and it was clear that he was dead. So I looked up to the gunner, and I was like, "He's dead." And then I realized my predicament. We're in a Humvee traveling at 45 miles an hour with no driver. He's dead. So then I went into panic mode, and I yelled for somebody, "Somebody grab the wheel, grab the wheel, grab the wheel." And I tried to get over and grab the wheel to try and pull the vehicle to a stop or trying to do something, because we were speeding up, and we had a vehicle in front of us, which is a lieutenant's vehicle. We were going to crash right into his vehicle, so making matters worse, I got up on the radio mount, and with all of the gear I had on, and I was a bit dazed from the blast, I couldn't quite get to the wheel. I couldn't get over the dead body. I just barely managed to grab the wheel and jerk it a little bit, but this sent our vehicle away from our lieutenant's vehicle that was in front of us. Then we began to speed out of control down the road, and what are we going to do? Luckily, the Marine who caught on fire behind the driver put himself out and had the common sense to climb over the dead driver and jerked the wheel very, very hard. When this happened, the vehicle crashed into a telephone pole, and we came to rest in an intersection, actually, for those who know, called Checkpoint 342 in Ar Ramadi, the crossway of Farouk Boulevards and Central Boulevard. Got a real bad situation on our hands. We're in an ambush. I have a dead Marine. I have another Marine's life who's threatened. He's bleeding out, and I got, bullets zinging around, and just this very, very intense moment. And I don't know why to this day, but it seemed very calm to me. I got a call on the radio. Did I need a corpsman? And I was like, yes, roger that, Reaper 1. We need a corpsman. I have one KIA. I have one WIA. And it was like business. So we went to go medevac. Halverson was the Marine's name. He was dead. There was nothing we could do for him. The corpsmen, these corpsmen we have in the Marine Corps are just exceptional, phenomenal. They risk their lives. They are, they're just amazing people. They're not combatants, but they're trained as combatants. So this corpsman, I don't know where he came from, comes flying up the line of vehicles. He's got a pressure bandage in one hand and a pressure bandage in the other hand. He looks at my driver, and my driver is obviously dead. His body had been horribly defigured from the RPG that literally went through his chest cavity. And he didn't want to accept the fact that Halverson was dead. And I was like, hey, Doc, he's dead. Let it go, he's dead. And he looked at me again like he wanted to patch him up. I was like, he's dead. Go help So. So had the back of his calf taken off and was bleeding out. I guess there was an artery there that was just spewing blood. So all hell broke loose during this moment. And for a moment there, I just kind of lost touch with reality. I remember grabbing my rifle, and we were taking contact from the north and just emptying clip after clip desperately to the north to try and suppress these guys who were trying to kill us. And then I realized that my buddy So needed help. So I went around to the other side of the vehicle to try and help the corpsman. They were moving him out of the vehicle, and they were going to move him into the evacuation truck. So we got So, and we're pulling his body across the intersection to get him to the medevac truck. Then all of a sudden, bullets started flying from the south. We got ambushed again. And I thought to myself, I'm going to die. And then I looked at the corpsman. The corpsman dropped So on the ground and jumped on top of him. He wasn't thinking about himself. He was thinking about protecting the Marine. So I just kind of caveated off of that and jumped on top with him. And we sat there. And I looked So in the face. And he looked at me, and he's like, did you jackasses rip my camis? And I was like, yeah, we did. Actually, yeah, we did. And we just kind of looked at each other, and we started laughing. In the middle of the road, bullets are flying. And then all of a sudden, this gun truck, my white knight, came flying up out of nowhere and started laying suppressive rounds to the south, effectively stopping the insurgents' fire. And things kind of calmed down, and we got my vehicle that was blown up, rigged for tow. We got the wounded Marine out. We got the dead Marine taken care of. And we began to go back to our base and kind of regroup for the next mission. This situation was a defining moment for me. And it's lasted with me to this day. It's been 4 years and about a month since this event happened to me, and it's just changed my whole perception on what really matters in life. Andrew Halverson, the Marine that died, was 1 day away from his 19th birthday, and he didn't make it. And so when I celebrate a birthday, I think about that, and it really moves me. When we go for a drive in the minivan, my wife and I and the kids, and we say, buckle up. I think about that moment. Of course, it doesn't always rule my life, but there are times when, let's say there's somebody waiting in line at the bank who's a little impatient or something, and, they wish the line would move a little faster. It doesn't really seem that important. this really impacted me, and I think it's my baseline for gratitude. One, I'm alive. Two, the situation confronting me, whatever it may be, maybe my dial-up online modem with my ancient computer is not connecting as fast as I would like it to, or I don't have cell phone reception, or they ran out of a particular food at a restaurant or something. It's really not that important. Another aspect of this incident, Andrew Halverson's mother, the Christian lady, after Andrew had died, you would think that a mom who had lost her son would be a bit bitter. In her mourning, she continuously reached out to our platoon, sending us care packages, calling us up, asking if we were okay. And it just showed me, it's a very tragic situation. But in these tragic situations, of course we experience the horror of it, but there's this great, amazing human spirit. I mean, I never would have imagined the son or the mom of a Marine who died would try to comfort us. You'd think she'd be so bereaved that she'd be, like a Cindy Sheehan type. But instead, there she was trying to comfort us. And this has been a very, very defining moment, defining experience for me in my combat operations while serving with my Marine battalion in Ar-Ramadi.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Yes.
What are some of your deepest impressions about the Iraqi people, society, and culture?
Well, it changed on the first deployment in OIF-1. My first experience was with Bedouins, kind of nomads, and I just thought to myself, these people are nuts to be living out here in the deserts. All they have is they're not actually camels, they're dromedaries. I learned that a camel has 2 humps, a dromedary only has 1, so they live out there with their dromedaries, and I thought to myself, wow, what kind of life is this? And as we moved closer and closer to Baghdad, we got to see the civilized parts, the cultivated parts, and see the family structure. And my first impressions of it were, I was amazed. People actually live like this. This is like 7th century. How do they survive? It's like an ancient farming town that these people have been farming for years after years. One thing that really shocked me, and I hope I don't offend any Iraqi men out there, but I noticed that there were so many Iraqi women out in the fields laboring very hard with large bushels on top of their heads, and they were dressed in these black burqas, and there'd be a few guys around, and I questioned, what are these men doing? Why are these women working so hard in the fields? And then as we moved towards Baghdad, it became a much more modern culture, and I was kind of shocked, to see pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jean Van Damme all over the place, and ice cream stores, and in America you never think about an ice cream parlor in Baghdad, but they exist. There's even pizzerias there. They know American culture, and there's kind of an intermingling there. The second time I went, it was very different. We were told, as we left the base, to keep our weapons pointed upright and wave to the people as we were moved to our locations. Well, we did that. I waved to a man, and he looked at me and drew his thumb across his neck, and I thought, whoa, this is a little different. There's something definitely wrong here. The first deployment in Operation Iraqi Freedom 1, we were cheered on the streets of Baghdad. People were yelling, Bush is good, America is #1, Saddam is a donkey. By the way, mister, do you have any chocolate? This very positive response. I felt kind of like we were the American troops liberating the Dutch from World War II. It was this amazing, thousands of people would come out in the streets and welcome us. They were so hospitable. I mean, I remember being at an intersection. It was god-awful hot. We didn't really have any cold water, and this Iraqi family came out, and they had baked French fries and eggs and had cool pitchers of water, and they gave it to us. And they were so grateful to see us. Well, here I am now a second time, and this man is drawing his thumb across his throat. And I'm like, whoa, what is, maybe we're not going to be doing security and stability operations. Maybe there's something else going on here. I tried to talk to a few of the people on my my deployment to Al-Ramadi, and the guys didn't want to talk to me. They're like, hey, I can't talk to you for longer than a minute, otherwise, I risk being killed. The third time, the last time I went in 2007, I actually got to interact with the people. I got invited into their homes, made chai, and was able to speak with many families, which was amazing to me. I got to meet the sheiks at these tribal councils that we were having. There's a group called the Al-Sahara, which Awakening Group. We got to meet them and eat together, and it's not modern America. Not everyone's eating with knives and forks and spoons, but there's this deep family commitment and bond with the Iraqi people that I found very similar to friends and family that I have deep connections with back here in America. And I began, once the war and the fighting began to die down, began to realize the Iraqi people are just like anybody else. I often tried to flip the table. I was like, what if my family in America was living in New Jersey and there was a French tank parked on the corner, and every time my kids went out to play soccer in the yard, the French tank would traverse its turret in their direction to check them out, and then would traverse back. I might not like the French very much. And in Ramadi, I saw this on a number of occasions where there were families that were just trying to go about their daily life, not involved in the insurgency, and they're having guns and tanks, pointed at them, because honestly, we don't know who to trust. You wanted to embrace these people. You wanted to give them everything that you had, to help them out. But you're caught up in this grip of fear. Is this person going to be a suicide bomber? Is this woman in a black burqa going to blow up on my vehicle team here? So once the veil of fear could come down and I could actually interact with the people there, I found them to be very warm, very hospitable, very gracious people.
Okay, thank you so much. How have combat operations affected your views on war and world peace?
I've often felt that there's a righteousness trying to defend someone who can't defend themselves, but it conflicts with this idea of world peace. I think I'm still struggling with that issue, to be honest with you. How do we bring about world peace? Is the military solution going to lead to peace? Well, historical examples show us, from World War II and Korea, peace does eventually come about, but it doesn't really come at the barrel of a gun. So I just wish that those leaders who send their young men off to fight would really think about the ramifications and the implications of what that means. Sadly enough, today in our society, Congress and our electorate, I don't know how many of those guys have actually served in a combat zone and know what it is to make that vote to go to war. I'm not one to, question my orders. If I'm ordered to go to war, then that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do it 1,000%. I just don't see combat operations as the most productive way to achieve lasting world peace. I think the military has recognized this as well. On my last deployment in Iraq, there's a new term that was brought up to me in my Marine Corps leadership classes. It was called non-kinetic operations. And I'm like, what the heck kind of jargon is non-kinetic operations? Well, then they're like explaining to us there's kinetic operations where you actually go out and hunt down and kill and destroy the enemy. And then there's non-kinetic operations where you're rebuilding the sewers, putting up electricity, making sure the markets are open, teaching the Iraqi police force how to be professional. I wish that the combat operations would never have to happen. And, you know, given any combat vet who's been there and done that, I think they would, 95% of them would agree they would not want to go through that again. I wish that we never would have to go to such extremes. But there's got to be reconciliation on both sides. You know, this ideology that says that you can kill yourself and take other people with you, that's got to be eradicated before we can put down our arms and come to some agreement on how we can help your country to be better, whether it be through economics and or, you know, through whatever other means there are. Yeah, I was always told as a Marine to stay in your pay grade. So I feel like in this question, I've traversed many pay grades. I'm sure there's many generals and colonels and gunnery sergeants who've tossed that question over and over. Is what we're doing in Iraq actually going to help bring about a more peaceful and safe world? My personal opinion is, yes, it has. I've seen it from day one to where we are now in Iraq. Incidentally, there's a grassroots movement in the internet calling November 22nd Victory in Iraq Day as a result of the lower occurrences of violence. For myself, though, I personally feel that combat operations is probably the most barbaric way to achieve peace, and in the end creates many more problems between tribes, between think about all the Marines who come back and are all messed up with post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, here's this young 18-year-old kid, he wants to serve his country, he goes out there, you know, thinking, oh, John Wayne. Well, it ain't John Wayne. It's something really different. And I don't know if every Marine would agree with me, but that's my personal feeling, that combat operations can help foster peace, but it's not the most efficient, effective way. It's got to be a last resort. I'll close with one line that I was taught as a junior Marine when I was standing guard duty. When you're standing guard duty, you're authorized in some certain circumstances to use deadly force. Deadly force is that force which a reasonable or sane person will know to cause serious bodily harm and or death should it be applied, and should only be implemented as a last resort when all lesser means have failed. So I would end it like that. You know, lesser means are definitely needed before we play the deadly force card.
Okay, thank you so much. What are some of the biggest misperceptions you've come across here at home about your mission in Iraq?
Everyone listens to the mainstream media. Unfortunately, in the mainstream media or in the newsprint, all you're going to read about is the death toll or the horrible things that are going on in Iraq. And so perhaps that one Marine who had a bad day and did something against what he was trained to do, and shot a civilian or something like that. So this whole negative, Vietnam-esque kind of mentality hits you when you talk to your, people around, But everyone has this kind of sugar-coated candy expression of support the troops. I support the troops, but I don't support the war. Oh my God. You either support what's going on there or you don't, because I'm the war. I'm the one pulling the trigger out there. I'm the one that's got to go and pull the trigger. So either you support me or you don't. So there's this big rift, I find. On the other hand, I've never been embraced by my fellow citizen so much as since having come back from Iraq. People generally appreciate everything that we do. So here's this strange oxymoron or contradiction. You have this news media that is just saying horrible negative things about America, about the American military, about Marines, but yet the people back home are so grateful for what we're doing. And then people have questions. They want to know what's going on in Iraq. I can tell you what was going on in Al-Ramadi. I can tell you, that Al-Ramadi now has the most stable level of government it had since Saddam Hussein. That, the Boy Scouts in Al-Ramadi has been restored. They have weekend soccer games. They have an ice cream parlor that's open. We used to go over to Ahmed's kebab shop over on 20th Street and buy kebabs. Whereas before, back in 2004, we were getting shot at on 20th Street. So the misperception is that we somehow failed in Iraq. I don't think we failed at all. I think we could have done a better job had we had a better plan, for post-combat operations, not allowing the insurgency to thrive as much as it did. That was probably, once again, I'm reminded by Chesty Puller, who's speaking to me now, to stay in my pay grade. These are not the Marine Corps' views. These are my views of going there and coming back.
Okay, thank you very much. On that note, Staff Sergeant Justin Harding, thank you so much for having been our guest today on The Defining Moment. It's really been a pleasure and a privilege to have you here as our guest.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right. You've been watching The Defining Moment for Creating a Culture of Conscience. You can find us on the internet at www.definingmoment.tv. Thanks for watching and have a great day.